one of the mightiest empires in history. But the Middle Kingdom, as it's called in Chinese, went through many periods known as dynasties, each with its own unique cultural characteristics. And there were many emperors who fueled that development, whether through military force, overthrowing China's foes and rebellions, or through soft power, unifying the empire through the arts. In this video, we are going to go through some of our favorites. This is the 5 greatest emperors in Chinese history. Hi everyone, I'm Ben Hedges. I'm a graduate of the Chinese department at the School of Oriental and African Studies at the University of London. I've made my career speaking Chinese and researching China. And on this channel, I share my love of Chinese and traditional Chinese culture with you all. So why not subscribe for more videos like this? 那我们现在开始讲中国最伟大的皇帝们。Number 1, the Yellow Emperor. Now, the Yellow Emperor is a mythical character, some say the grandfather of all of Chinese civilization. He existed in a similar way to the gods of ancient Greece, who lived in heavenly realms above Mount Olympus and could travel back and forth between the heavens and the human world. Or think of the Norse god Thor traveling back and forth between the human world and Asgard. It seems the Yellow Emperor was this type of figure. It is recorded that he was a cultivator of the Tao, which is one of the many spiritual disciplines in China through which people are believed to be able to attain enlightenment. Thus, he could travel back and forth between the earth and the heavenly realms too, often riding on a dragon. Ancient Aliens did a hilarious episode about the Yellow Emperor, where they of course insisted the dragon was actually an alien spaceship and he himself was an alien.
Something was witnessed by our ancestors that they could best describe with the vocabulary that was available to them at the time.
Like, yeah, if it sounds like aliens, it must be aliens.
It's very possible that the Yellow Emperor was actually traveling on a UFO.
Now, I don't believe that. I think he was a man, but maybe he did have some sort of supernatural power or just a very high level of intelligence. The Yellow Emperor is said to have invented a lot of things that later became common to Chinese civilization, such as Chinese medicine, wooden houses, bronze coins, drums to rouse his troops and frighten the enemy during battle, and his wife invented silk. He also fought other rival emperors for control of China and ended up ruling the entire territory. Out of his 25 sons, 14 of them were given surnames, and they became the original surnames of the Chinese people. So the Yellow Emperor was really the mythological founder of all of Chinese civilization. His reign is said to have began around 2697 BC. So that's before the Roman Empire, before Noah's Ark, and around the time of the early dynastic period in Egypt. Alright, let's move on. After the Yellow Emperor, there were several legendary sage emperors, and then a great flood, and after that we get into the Xia, Shang, and Zhou dynasties, where the rulers called themselves kings, not emperors. That is until the Zhou dynasty degenerated into the Warring States period and was then united by Number 2, the first emperor, Qin Shi Huang. China's first emperor, at least in the modern period, unified the warring states through military conquest, forming the Qin dynasty in the year 221 BC. In this instance, being a great emperor doesn't necessarily mean he was good. He was known for his cruel militaristic rule, where he burned books, buried scholars alive, and conscripted large numbers of men to work on building projects such as the Great Wall, which was built to keep out invaders from the north. And actually, the Great Wall you see today and what is portrayed in many movies, that is all sections of the wall that were built in the later Ming dynasty. The parts built by the first emperor looked more like this, just rammed earth and stones. But he is the one credited with the wall's creation. He linked up several sections of wall that the warring states had built and created one long continuous wall along China's border to keep out all the scary stuff that existed to the north. Although the rule of the first emperor was horrific for the Chinese people, he did contribute to the unification of an empire that still exists as a country today. He did this by unifying things like weights and measures, money, the width of roads, and the Chinese writing system using the small seal script. He is probably most well known today for his terracotta army of 8,000 clay soldiers that protected him in the afterlife. Just as you are thinking, what a nice guy for just using clay soldiers instead of burying an army alive with him, I have to tell you that he did actually have a load of real people buried alive in his tomb with him as well, like all his concubines who didn't have children, and anyone who knew the design features of the tomb was buried alive in there as well. However, after the First Empire died, the Qin dynasty only lasted a few more years until another dynasty was founded by our next great emperor. Number 3. Han Gaozu. The first emperor of the Han dynasty was born into a peasant family, and his name was Liu Bang. He grew up to become a minor civil servant in the Qin dynasty, but as the Qin fell apart, he renounced his position and became a rebel leader. He contended with another warlord, Xiang Yu, for control of all of China. The contention between Liu Bang and Xiang Yu is actually a tragic story in itself, since they started both fighting the Qin and even fought alongside each other, but eventually realized that China only had one throne and they would eventually have to have a showdown. In the end, Liu Bang was victorious at the Battle of Gaixia or Gaixia Zhizhan, and he established the Han dynasty or Han Chao in 202 BC and has become known as Emperor Han Gaozu.
Anything Han? That's Han, but that's okay.
He took several benevolent actions at the start of his rule, including allowing his soldiers to return home and exempting them from taxes for 6 years. He also lowered taxes for the population in general and bought the freedom of those who had sold themselves into slavery during the war to avoid starvation. After meeting the scholar Lu Jia, Han Gaozu adopted Confucianism as the official philosophy of the empire, and it gradually replaced legalism, which was the system of laws and harsh punishments that was a central part of the authoritarian Qin dynasty. The Han dynasty still had law and order, but punishments were relaxed somewhat, and the Confucian values of morality and self-cultivation were adopted to maintain stability in society. And guess what? It worked. The Han dynasty became known as China's first golden age. The period saw all aspects of Chinese society flourish, and during the Han, Buddhism also made its way from India to China and became one of China's 3 main religions: Buddhism, Taoism, and Confucianism. But we said the first golden age, so there must have been a second, right? And indeed there is, and it was brought about by our next great Chinese emperor. Number 4. Tang Taizong. Tang Taizong was the second emperor of the Tang dynasty, although often credited as the dynasty's co-founder. Born in the year 598, Tang Taizong's given name was Li Shimin, and he was the son of Li Yuan, who was a general in the Sui dynasty which preceded the Tang. The Sui dynasty was kind of a bit like the Qin, a harsh, short-lived militaristic dynasty. As military losses mounted in a war with Korea, the seeds of rebellion started to bud. At the same time, there was a prophecy being spread in the empire that the next emperor would be surnamed Li. Li Yuan became afraid that because of this prophecy, the Sui emperor would see him as a threat. His son, Li Shimin, was actually even more on the ball and had already started planning a rebellion, so his father made Li Shimin a general and they went to war against the Sui. In 618 AD, they won, and Li Yuan established the Tang dynasty with himself as the first emperor. At this time, Li Shimin still had a few battles to fight with pockets of rebels, but he was so good at putting down the rebellions that his father bestowed on him the title Grand General of Heavenly Strategies, Tiance Shangjiang. Before long, it really became apparent that Li Shimin was incredibly capable, and a rivalry developed between him and his 2 brothers, which culminated in him killing them both and forcing his father to abdicate and give the throne to him. It was probably for the best, I'm sure. Well, it did work out pretty well for China, since Li Shimin, who would later be called Tang Taizong, remained undefeated as emperor until much later in his life, and China became strong under his rule, expanding west along the Silk Road. The capital, Chang'an, was the biggest city in the world at the time and flourished with visitors from as far away as the Byzantine Empire in Europe. The imperial examination system was refined and developed under the Tang as the main way for officials to be chosen on merit, not just family background. The Tang dynasty has come to be known as the main golden age of China, the high point of Chinese civilization, and Tang Taizong as its greatest emperor. If you want to see the complete story of Tang Taizong, check out our video on him. It looks like this. You can find it on our channel. Alright, let's now move on to our final great Chinese emperor. Number 5. Kangxi. In 1644, the Manchurians, a non-Chinese ethnic group from beyond the Great Wall to the northeast, seized control of Beijing. They began the Qin dynasty, and Emperor Kangxi was the third Qing emperor and the longest reigning emperor in Chinese history. He was on the throne for 61 years. I mean, that's still 9 years shorter than Queen Elizabeth, but you know, not bad, not bad. But the real reason many view Kangxi as a great emperor was his cultural achievements. Although he came from a non-Chinese background, Kangxi and other Manchus like him recognized China as the Middle Kingdom and Chinese culture as the greatest in the world. He ordered the compilation of great cultural works such as the Kangxi Dictionary of Chinese Characters and the complete collection of Tang poems, or Quan Tang Shi. Kangxi also loved touring the empire and carried out no less than 6 inspection tours to the south of China, many of which are recorded in classic paintings. He also showed a lot of scholarly interest in traditional Chinese culture and the arts, like calligraphy, and commissioned the imperial kilns to produce a large amount of porcelain for the palace. In all, Kangxi was a scholarly emperor who played the role of not just safeguarding, but even advancing and developing Chinese culture. His 61-year reign and the 61-year reign of his grandson Qianlong that followed represent the high point of the Qing dynasty, the last imperial dynasty in China before the imperial system collapsed, leading first into the nationalist period and then into communism, which did the opposite of what Kangxi and other emperors worked towards. Communism intentionally destroyed Chinese culture. But if you want to take part in the revival of Chinese traditions, one aspect that is experiencing a big revival right now is Chinese classical dance. And today's sponsor, the Shenyun Arts Proficiency Center, is now teaching traditional Chinese dance to the public with their new online program. Shenyun is the world's premier Chinese performing arts company, reviving traditional arts. Their slogan is China before communism. So you can go to learnchinesedance.com and learn traditional Chinese classical dance from world-class instructors that have performed with Shenyun in some of the most prestigious theaters around the globe. There are 10 levels of online pre-recorded courses from beginner to advanced, as well as live classes that you can join from the comfort of your own home. So make Emperor Kangxi proud and contribute to the revival of traditional Chinese culture and improve your physique at the same time by going to learnchinesedance.com or clicking the link in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and leave me some of your other favorite Chinese emperors in the comments below. I think if there's enough interest, we can definitely do a part 2 of this video with some lesser known emperors that still have great achievements and contributions to Chinese culture. Please subscribe to the channel if you're new, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.